Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're looking at a story that honestly feels like it was ripped straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster. We're going to break down one of the most cinematic, high-stakes, and frankly unbelievable bank robberies in American history. We've got a brilliant mastermind and nearly flawless execution, millions of dollars vanishing into thin air, and a mind-bogglingly simple mistake that brought the entire empire crashing down. So, let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Picture this. It's Monday morning, March 27, 1972. A bank manager arrives for work in Laguna Niguel, California. Now, this is a quiet, wealthy, oceanfront community known for mansions and golf courses. You know, a place where absolutely nothing bad ever happens. The manager walks in, and everything in the lobby looks completely normal. But then he walks over to the vault, and his heart just stops. The heavy steel time-lock door is slightly ajar. He pulls it open, and the sight inside is just pure chaos. The vault is utterly gutted. An estimated $30 million is just gone. But what makes this crime so legendary isn't just the sheer amount of money. It's how they did it. There were no guns drawn, no tellers taken hostage, not a single witness to the crime. Over 300 heavy-duty safe deposit boxes were painstakingly destroyed and cracked open. Millions in cash, gold bars, precious historical coins, and diamonds were swept away in the dead of night. And the craziest part of all this? The bank's state-of-the-art alarm system, which was directly connected to the local police station, never even rang.
Which brings us to part one, the ultimate bank heist. No guns, no hostages, no witnesses. And that leads right into part two, planning the perfect crime, orchestrated by the mastermind from Ohio.
So who do you even call to pull off a flawless, silent job like this? Well, you definitely don't call a street thug. You call Amel Dinzio. Amel was a professional thief from Youngstown, Ohio, and he treated bank robbery not as some quick smash and grab, but as an absolute art form. He didn't believe in violence at all. He believed in meticulous, obsessive planning. For weeks, he and his crew quietly observed the United California Bank. They tracked the security guard schedules, mapped out the blind spots, and literally looked for the single weakest point in this highly fortified building. An operation of this magnitude required a really specific set of skills, and Amel knew that bringing in outsiders was just too risky, because outsiders talk. So he made it a family business. He brought in his brother James, who was an absolute artist with controlled explosives. He recruited his nephews, Harry and Ronald, for the heavy physical lifting. He brought in Philip Christopher to handle the complicated alarms, and Charles Mulligan to manage all the logistics. They even flew in separately from Ohio just to avoid suspicion, and they rented a quiet, totally ordinary tourist townhouse in Laguna Niguel to serve as their secret base of operations.
Let's look at part three, breaching the bank vault, the weekend operation.
The bank closed on Friday evening and wouldn't reopen until Monday morning, right? That gave the crew a massive, uninterrupted 48-hour window. On the night of Friday, March 24th, under the cover of complete darkness, the gang quietly made their move. And this brilliantly illustrates their genius three-step plan. They didn't go through the front door. Step one, they scaled the fire escape of an adjacent building, creeping up step by step in the dead of night until they reached the roof of the bank. Step two is where Philip Christopher, the alarm specialist, really earned his cut. He found the physical alarm bell on the roof that wired directly to the police. His solution? He carefully injected expanding polyurethane foam right into the bell mechanism. As the foam expanded and hardened, it completely jammed the clapper. The electrical circuit could trigger all it wanted, but the bell physically could not ring. Wild, right? Finally, in step three, James Dinzio used precision-cutting explosives. These are really small, highly controlled charges that wouldn't echo through the neighborhood to blast a hole right through the concrete roof and drop directly down into the vault.
Now, what fascinates me most about this timeline is the sheer, unadulterated audacity of this crew. Just look at the schedule. They breached the vault on Friday night, worked for hours cracking boxes in the dark, and then, by early Saturday morning, they actually left the bank. They climbed back up their ropes, went back to the rental townhouse, took a nap, watched some TV, and ate some food. Then, on Saturday night, knowing the alarm was dead and they were totally undetected, they went back in for round two. They spent another whole night cracking open boxes before finally making their ultimate escape on Sunday morning.
All right, part four, Black Money in the White House, the Watergate-era connection.
So, Monday morning arrives. The crime is finally discovered, and the FBI rushes in. And this is where the story takes a very, very weird turn.
As the FBI starts contacting the owners of the safe deposit boxes to tally up all the losses, they just hit a brick wall. Many of the wealthy victims flat out refused to report what was stolen. Some of the boxes were even completely anonymous. Investigators pretty quickly realized that this vault was being used by wealthy elites to hide illegal, black money, basically cash they really didn't want the IRS or law enforcement to know about. This bizarre secrecy birthed one of the greatest rumors in true crime history. Rumors swirled that some of those anonymous boxes held illegal campaign funds tied to President Richard Nixon, right as the Watergate era was brewing. Now, I want to be absolutely, perfectly clear here. We are strictly looking at the historical rumors presented in our sources. The FBI never officially confirmed this connection, and neither the government nor the bank ever validated it. But the fact that millions of dollars were stolen and the victims wouldn't even report it, it adds an incredible, almost cinematic layer of mystery to the whole heist.
Let's move to part 5 and see how this builds up to one fatal dishwasher mistake, the clue that ruined everything. Initially, the FBI, led by Agent Richard Krieger, is just completely stumped. They have 0 fingerprints inside the bank because the crew wore gloves the entire time. No footprints, no witnesses, nothing. But the FBI does what they do best: relentless pavement pounding. They start checking every single short-term rental in the area. Eventually, a local real estate agent points them to a townhouse rented by some tourists from Ohio who had just hastily checked out. When the FBI forensic team enters that townhouse, they find it mostly wiped clean. But then, they discover the ultimate contrast between a brilliant heist and a painfully stupid mistake. Inside the kitchen dishwasher, sitting right there in the dark, were unwashed plates and glasses. After a weekend of pulling off the crime of the century, the crew had a nice meal, loaded the dishwasher, and in their massive rush to flee California, they completely forgot to hit start. And on one of those dirty glasses, an FBI forensic technician managed to lift a single, slightly smudged but identifiable partial fingerprint. Now you have to remember, this is 1972. There are no instant computer databases where you just hit a button. Agent Krieger literally had his team manually compare this partial print against known professional bank robbers from the Midwest who specialized in explosives and alarms. It took immense, tedious effort, but finally, they got the manual match. The fingerprint belonged to Emil Dincio. Just like that, the ghost suddenly had a name, a face, and a very thick criminal record in Ohio. Which brings us to part 6. The FBI closes in. The sting in Akron.
With Emil identified, the FBI knows they have their guy. But they also know a random fingerprint in a rental house isn't going to be enough to actually put him away for the big bank heist. They really need to catch him in the act. So they set up this massive surveillance operation in Ohio. They get court orders to tap the Dincio crew's phone lines, which was a highly complex operation back then. And through these super-coded conversations, the FBI decodes that Emil is already bored and planning his next strike. By July of 1972, the FBI gets a tip that the crew was targeting a bank in Akron, Ohio. Through the wiretaps, they literally listen as Emil plans a near replica of the California heist. The FBI decides to wait. They want them red-handed. So on a night in August 1972, the Dincio crew approaches the Akron bank. They scale the building, exactly like before. But the very moment they step onto the roof, floodlights snap on. Sirens wail. Armed FBI agents emerge from the shadows and arrest the entire crew right there on the roof, tools and explosives in hand. Game over.
Finally, part 7, the missing $30 million, a secret taken to the grave.
The trial that followed in 1973 was an absolute media sensation. Faced with the wiretaps, the dishwasher fingerprint, and being caught red-handed in Akron, the crew really didn't stand a chance. Emil and his brother James were sentenced to 20 to 30 years in federal prison. But throughout all the aggressive interrogations and the entire trial, Emil Dincio kept his mouth completely shut about one very important detail. He absolutely refused to ever reveal what happened to the loot from California. And when you look at the numbers, there is a massive gap. Because so much of the money was black money or off the books, the bank officially reported a loss of around $5 million. But later on, retired FBI investigators admitted that based on the scope of the vault and the sheer number of boxes cracked, the actual estimated value of the stolen cash, gold, and diamonds was closer to $30 million. To put that into perspective, that would be upwards of $80 or $90 million today. And when the FBI raided Emil's properties, they found almost nothing, just a tiny, tiny fraction of the total haul.
So the crucial takeaway here is this. Emil Dincio served his time. He was paroled in the 1980s, basically an old and broken man. And reporters would occasionally knock on his door in Ohio and ask him, "Emil, come on, "Where's the money?" he would just smile at them and quietly shut the door. He passed away in the early 2000s, taking the ultimate answer with him. Did he distribute it all to family? Is it buried under a building somewhere in the Midwest? Or was it quietly reclaimed by the powerful people who originally lost it? Honestly, we may never know. But it leaves us with one final, incredibly fascinating question to wrap up this explainer. Where do you think the $30 million went? Thanks so much for joining me to unpack this incredible piece of history.